quiet moment that started everything was a strange kind of morning. It's a kind where the sky held too much silence and the city moved slower than usual. Even the traffic lights blinked like they were unsure of themselves. Keanu Reeves was sitting in the back of a plain black car, windows slightly cracked to let in the early summer breeze. He was on his way to a small event, something low profile, something he had agreed to because a friend asked him. The streets were empty in a peaceful way, not the eerie kind. He looked out of the window, lost in thought, when something caught his attention. It was a woman walking along the sidewalk, barefoot. Long brown hair was a little messy, and her white dress floated softly with every step. Her head was down, and her pace was slow, like each footstep was a quiet apology to the ground. Keanu leaned forward. "Stop the car," he said gently. The driver hesitated, but then pulled over. Keanu opened the door and stepped out slowly, not wanting to startle her. As he walked closer, his heart sank a little. It was Ana de Armas. He hadn't seen her in months. Not since the rap party of that intense film they did together. Things were a bit awkward between them back then, not because they didn't care, but because they cared a little too much. But this wasn't the version of Ana he remembered. This Ana looked like she had walked out of a storm and was still carrying the rain inside her. Her feet were dirty and bruised. Her eyes were red but dry, as if she had already cried everything she had. She wasn't pretending to be strong. She looked like someone who had stopped pretending altogether. "Ana," Keanu said softly. She paused and looked up, her eyes blinking with confusion at first, then disbelief. "Keanu?" Her voice cracked like a thin sheet of glass under pressure. He didn't ask questions. Not yet. Instead, he looked down at her feet, then silently took off his own shoes, simple black loafers, and placed them in front of her. "You'll hurt yourself," he said. She looked at the shoes, then back at him. Her lips trembled, but she didn't move, please, he added. "Just put them on. Can talk later." Something in his voice made her give in. She slowly slipped her feet into the shoes. They were a bit big, but they protected her. And as she did, a single tear slid down her cheek. A man across the street, holding his phone up for a morning vlog, captured the moment without realizing it would go viral within hours. I hadn't known who they were, not until the internet. Lit up with hashtags and comments, the image of Keanu kneeling in front of a broken-looking Ana, offering her his shoes, hit millions of people like a warm hug they didn't expect. But at that moment, they weren't actors. They weren't celebrities, or just two people, one broken, one trying to hold her together. Keanu guided her to the car. She hesitated before getting in. "I can't go back there," she whispered. "Then let's not," he replied. "We'll go somewhere quiet." And that's how it began. Not with big speeches, not with fancy dinners, but with a pair of shoes and a man who knew not to ask questions. They drove in silence for a while. Keanu didn't want to press her. He just kept looking out the window, letting her know he was there if she wanted to talk. And finally, when they reached the edge of the city, a place with trees, a bench, and nothing else, she spoke. "I walked out of my apartment this morning because I felt like I couldn't breathe in there anymore." She said, "I left. Everything. My phone, my bag, everything. I didn't even know where I was going. I just wanted to get away from the noise." Keanu listened carefully, nodding. "You ever feel like you're disappearing, even when everyone sees you?" She asked. "Yes," he said, "more than once." She looked at him, surprised. Maybe she had always thought he had it all figured out. Maybe she never realized how lonely fame could feel. "What do you do when that happens?" she asked. He thought for a moment. "I find silence," he said, "and someone who doesn't try to fix me, just sits with me." Her eyes welled up again, but this time she didn't cry from pain. It was something else. Maybe relief. They sat on the bench for a long time, saying little, just watching the wind move through the trees. It was the kind of quiet that didn't ask anything from them. By afternoon, the video had already reached millions. People wrote poems about it, made artwork, created songs. It's not because of who they were, but because of what the moment meant. Kindness without noise, presence without condition, And somewhere in that peaceful place, Ana leaned her head on Keanu's shoulder. Not because she had to, but because it finally felt safe to rest. The silence between them was louder than words. The next morning came slowly, as if the world itself was afraid to disturb the quiet peace they had found the day before. Soft light peeked through the tall trees outside the small cottage. Keanu had brought her to a place tucked far from cameras, far from questions, far from anything loud. Ana woke up on the couch, wrapped in a thick gray blanket, the kind that smelled like old books and clean earth. She blinked against the soft light and sat up, her feet still snug in Keanu's shoes. For a second, she forgot where she was. Then she saw a folded note on the small wooden table next to her. "I went for coffee. Didn't want to wake you. Stay as long as you need." Keanu, she held the note for a long time. It was simple, quiet, no pressure. And yet it carried more comfort than anything anyone had told her in months. The room was warm. Not just because of the heater, but because it felt like someone had prepared it with care. There was a glass of water, tissues, a soft pillow under her head. Everything told her, you matter. When Keanu returned, he didn't knock. He just entered softly and placed 2 coffee cups on the table. He didn't ask how she slept, didn't say you look better. He just sat across from her and passed her the warm cup. They drank in silence, but it wasn't empty. It was the kind of silence that healed. After a few quiet sips, Ana looked up. "Do you ever wonder if you chose the wrong life?" she asked Keanu. Nodded slowly. "Sometimes. But I try not to stay in that thought too long. I think I stayed there too long," she whispered. "I built my life around being seen. Now, I just want to disappear." He leaned forward slightly. "You don't have to be seen to matter." She looked at him, her eyes soft but tired. "Then why does it feel like the world only loves us when we're shining?" Keanu didn't rush. His answer, "Because the world's noisy. But real people, they love the quiet parts too. You just don't always know how to say it." Ana breathed in deeply, her shoulders rising and falling as if letting go of something she'd carried. "Too long? My manager keeps calling. I know the media is going crazy. That video of us? It's everywhere." He nodded. "I figured. It's not your fault. I'm not ready to go back," she admitted. "Then don't," said simply. She looked down at her coffee, then back up at him. "Why are you being so kind to me?" His answer was soft and true. "Someone once did the same for me when I couldn't carry myself. Because I know what it's like to break quietly." Ana blinked, fighting back tears. There was no performance here, no cameras. It's just one human being recognizing another. By that afternoon, news outlets were calling it the most honest moment of the year. Artists were sketching it. Influencers were talking about how kindness never needed a stage. The world was craving something real, and they had accidentally given it to them. Ana's phone buzzed again. Another message. Another request. Another meeting, she sighed and turned it off. "I need air," she said. Keanu stood. "Let's walk." They walked side by side down a forest path behind the cottage. Her steps were steadier now, her breath deeper. Birds moved in and out of trees above them, as if they were being silently blessed by the world itself. She stopped by a small stream, watching the water dance across the rocks. "I thought about quitting," she said. "Not just the industry. Everything." Keanu didn't flinch. He didn't look shocked. "I'm glad you didn't," he said gently. "You say that so easily, 'cause I mean it." She turned to him. "You really think I can start over?" "I think," he said, "you already have." Something in her chest softened, like ice melting for the first time in spring. In that moment, for the first time in weeks, she smiled. Not the kind she gave to fans. Not the polite one for interviews. But a small, crooked, real smile. The kind that says, "Maybe I'm not alone." They spent the rest of the day in the cottage, cooking a simple dinner, listening to old jazz on a dusty radio. No headlines, no filters. Just 2 people reminding each other how to be human again. And later, as Ana curled up under the same gray blanket, her voice came softly from the couch. "Thank you, Keanu." His voice, from the kitchen, returned just as soft. You don't owe me anything. I know, she said. But that's why it means everything. And outside, somewhere in the world, another person watched the video of him giving her his shoes. They shared it with a friend, saying, "This is the kind of man I want to be." When kindness becomes a mere world outside their quiet little cottage kept spinning, news channels replayed the video over and over. Blogs called it a rare act of silent grace. Strangers on the internet who didn't even know Ana personally were writing messages like, "You are not alone." Some wrote poems. Some shared their own stories of being lost, broken, or silently suffering. Somehow, that one act, him offering his shoes, had given people permission to feel again. But Ana didn't read any of it, not yet. She wasn't ready inside the cottage. She was still healing. Healing doesn't follow the internet's schedule. Keanu noticed it the moment she stopped flinching when the floor creaked. When her hand stopped shaking while pouring tea. When her laughter came hesitant, unsure but real. "How long are you planning to stay?" he asked her one morning, stirring honey into his tea. "I don't know," she said honestly. "But it's the first time in a long time I don't feel rushed to decide." He nodded. He understood. They spent their days like old friends who had no need to fill every silence. Sometimes they would cook. Sometimes they'd just sit on the porch and watch clouds shift above the hills. Once, Ana found an old puzzle in the cabinet, and they sat on the floor for hours, piecing together quiet moments with cardboard corners. But one evening changed everything. It started with a knock at the door. Keanu answered it, finding a delivery. Man holding a stack of letters and packages, no press, no cameras. Just letters, dozens of them, handwritten, addressed to Ana. He looked confused. "These were sent to the studio," the delivery man explained. "But your assistant said you were here, so yeah, here you go." Keanu thanked him, took the letters inside, and placed them gently on the wooden table. Ana stared at them like they might explode. "I don't think I can open them," she whispered. "Then don't," Keanu said. "But what if there's something I need to hear in there?" she asked, voice trembling. Keanu sat beside her. "Then I'll read them with you, and if something hurts, we stop." They opened the first one together. It was from a young girl in Peru. "Saw your face, and how sad your eyes looked. I'm only 13, but I've had that same face before. Thank you for showing me that even people like you can feel broken too. It made me feel less weird." Anna pressed the letter to her chest. They opened another. "I'm a nurse, and yesterday was my worst shift. I saw your video and cried in my car, not because of the fame, but because someone out there gave someone else their shoes. That's what kindness is. Quiet and real." On his tears came slowly, but they came. Letter after letter, story after story, people from around the world, pouring out parts of themselves, all connected by one quiet act of care. By the end of the night, the table was covered in opened envelopes. Ana sat with her knees pulled to her chest, eyes swollen, but her heart a little lighter. "I didn't think people saw me like this," she said. "They didn't," Keanu said. "Not until you let them." She turned to him. "How are you so calm in all this?" "'Cause I've lived through noise before," he answered. "And I learned that silence is a kind of strength too." A moment passed between them, a long one, the kind that says more than dialogue ever could. Then out of nowhere, she laughed. "What?" he asked, smiling. "You gave me your shoes and..." Somehow started a global wave of emotional honesty. "Realize that, right?" he chuckled. "I didn't plan that. Just didn't want you to get hurt." "Well, mission failed," she teased, pointing to her heart. "Because now this part of me hurts in the best way." The next morning, Ana did something unexpected. She asked Keanu if he could drive her to town. "Are you sure?" He asked. "No," she said, "but I think it's time." They drove slowly. The road back to the world felt long, but she didn't rush it. She kept the windows slightly open, letting the wind kiss her face. When they arrived, there were no paparazzi. Just a few quiet people who glanced their way but said nothing. It was as if the world somehow had decided to be gentle for once. They walked past a small bookstore. Ana paused. "Let's go in." They browsed in silence. Keanu looked at old sci-fi novels. Ana picked up a book of poems. The woman at the counter recognized them but didn't say a word. She just smiled. As they were leaving, a man outside stepped forward. He looked nervous, unsure. "Excuse me," he said to Ana. "I just wanted to say thank you." Ana blinked. "For what?" "For reminding me to be a better husband," he said. "Your story made me walk 3 blocks in the rain last night just to bring my wife her favorite tea. She didn't even ask. Shh. I just wanted her to know I still see her." Ana felt her throat tighten. She nodded. Double quotes, "Thank you for telling me that." As they walked back to the car, Keanu said softly, "See? Even your pain helped someone else's love survive." She didn't respond right away, but later in the car, she whispered, "I think I want to do something. Not a comeback, not a performance, something real." Keanu looked at her with quiet encouragement. "Whatever it is, I'll help you." For the first time since that day she walked barefoot down the street, Ana felt something different. She felt purpose. A quiet mission begins the day. After their trip to the bookstore, Ana woke up early. Sunlight spilled through the thin curtains, lighting the room with a soft gold glow. She sat up slowly, blankets still wrapped around her shoulders, and stared at the open notebook in front of her. She hadn't written anything in months. Not a script, not a message, not even a note to herself. But now, her hand moved. The pen shook at first. Then it didn't. She wrote with her whole heart. Not for fame, not for fans. "For healing, I don't know who I am right now," she wrote. "But for the first time, I want to find out without pretending." Keanu walked into the room with 2 mugs of tea, saw her writing but didn't speak. He just placed the mug beside her and waited. "I think I want to start something," Ross said, her eyes still on the page. "Something like what?" he asked gently. "A place," she replied, "for people who feel like I did. Not a clinic. Not therapy. Just a space where they don't have to be okay. Where someone listens. Where kindness lives." Keanu's eyes softened. "That's beautiful. You think people will care?" she asked, unsure. "People care more than they show," he said. "You showed them it's okay to feel broken. Now you can give them a place to rest." She smiled, not because everything was perfect, but because she finally knew what to do with her pain. Over the next few days, they made quiet plans. Ana didn't announce anything online. No press releases, no interviews. She just reached out to people who had written her, those who had shared their own silent struggles. She asked them questions, listened, wrote down their words. Keanu watched her transform slowly, not into the old Ana, but into someone deeper, someone stronger in a quiet way. One evening, as they sat under the stars on the cottage porch, she looked over at him. "Why did you help me?" she asked. "Really?" Keanu took a long breath before answering. "Because I saw myself in you," he said. "And I wished someone had done for me what I had the chance to do for you." "What were you going through?" she asked softly. He looked up at the stars. "I once spent months alone after a loss," he said. "People kept trying to cheer me up, tell me to move on. But I didn't need cheer. I needed someone to sit with me in the silence. So now that's what I try to be for others. Silence that doesn't walk away." Ana felt her eyes sting. She reached over and gently touched his hand. "Thank you for staying," they sat like. That for a long time, no rush, no noise. The next morning, she received an email from a woman named Clara. It was short. "My son is 15. He saw your video. He's been quiet for years since his father died. But yesterday he looked at me and said, 'Do you think we could help people like her?' Thank you." Ana read it 3 times, then looked at Keanu. "I want to start with them," she said. With that boy, he nodded. "Let's do it." He invited Clara and her son to the cottage. It wasn't a formal meeting. They had lunch, sat outside, played cards. The boy named Raphael was quiet at first. He barely spoke. Ana didn't push. Instead, she sat beside him, took off her shoes, and dipped her feet into the little creek. "I used to walk barefoot when I didn't want to feel anything," she said. "But now I do it to feel everything. The cold, the stones, the dirt. It reminds me I'm still here." Raphael looked at her. Then slowly, without saying a word, He pulled off his sneakers and stepped into the water beside. Hurt. It was a small thing, but sometimes small things change everything. Later that evening, after the family had left, Ana smiled. As she looked at the quiet photos she took of Raphael laughing by the water, "This is what I want to build," she said. "Not a brand, not a business, just a place where people remember they're still here." Keanu raised his glass of orange juice, too, remembering. They clinked glasses. Meanwhile, back in the city, media houses were trying to figure out what Ana was planning. Her name was trending again, but she hadn't posted anything herself. Fans were guessing. Rumors were spinning. She didn't care. Because for the first time in her life, the work she was doing had nothing to do with her image. It was about connection. A few days later, Keanu walked into the cottage with a simple wooden sign. "I made something," he said, holding it up. The sign read, "The Barefoot Place, come as you are." Ana looked at it and covered her mouth with both hands. Tears gathered in her eyes, not from pain this time, but from something deeper. "It's perfect," she whispered. They hung it on the front gate the same evening. No one knew what it meant. Not yet, but they would, because something real had started. Not on a stage, not in a studio, but in the soft space between silence and kindness. And the Barefoot Place had just begun. The Barefoot Place opens its doors. Sky was still pink when the first person arrived. She was a young woman in her 20s, wearing a scarf too big for her frame and shoes that looked older than her. She didn't say anything when she stepped through the wooden gate. She just paused when she saw the hand-painted sign, "The Barefoot Place, come as you are." Ana watched her from the porch. She didn't rush to greet her. She simply stood up and walked toward her barefoot. "Of course," and gave the woman a warm nod as if to say, "I see you." The woman's eyes welled up instantly. She took off her shoes and stepped forward. That was how the Barefoot Place began. No big opening, and no red carpet. No social media countdown. Just quiet people with full hearts and tired souls walking into a space that asked for nothing but their truth. Keanu had helped build 2 benches under the trees. He had also placed a kettle near the kitchen window, with a little sign, "Take a cup, take a breath." By noon, 7 more people had shown up. One was a father who hadn't seen his daughter in years. Another was a teacher who had forgotten how to smile. There was a soldier, a florist, a retired dancer, and a girl who hadn't spoken to anyone since her mother passed. Ana welcomed them all the same way. No speeches, no expectations. Just presence. Keanu stayed nearby, quietly fixing things, preparing meals, listening when needed. He wasn't the center of anything, and he liked it that way. Around sunset, they all sat in a circle. No one was forced to speak, but one by one they did. "I didn't come here to talk," the retired dancer began, "but this place makes silence feel safe." The teacher added, "I didn't know how heavy my smile had become until I heard myself laugh today." Then the soldier spoke. His voice was rough and low. "I've been to war. I've seen too much. But this sitting under trees with strangers who don't ask what's wrong, this might be the bravest thing I've done." Ana didn't speak much during the circle. She listened. Her eyes didn't drift. She gave each person her full focus. It was something rare in the world to feel truly heard, and that's what the Barefoot Place was built on. By the end of the day, a gentle energy filled the air. Not loud, not dramatic, just healing, slow and real. Keanu lit a few candles and placed them near the porch steps. They flickered gently in the breeze like soft breaths. Later, as the visitors began to leave, one by one, they all did something surprising. They left their shoes behind. They placed them under the porch neatly, side by side, as if saying, "Thank you for carrying me this far. Now I can walk on my own." Ana stood in silence, staring at the row of shoes. She didn't expect that. She felt tears rise. But they weren't heavy this time. Keanu stepped beside her and whispered, "Looks like they understood." "I didn't plan this," she said. almost laughing through her tears. "The best things aren't planned," he replied. They sat down on the steps and looked out at the trees, the stars beginning to blink into view above them. "I thought I lost everything when I broke down," Ana whispered. "But maybe that version of me had to fall apart so this version could breathe." Keanu smiled. "Sometimes you don't find your purpose until you stop performing." Ana looked over at him. "You've always known this, haven't you?" Nodded slowly. "I've known it. But it took me years to live it. Thank you for waiting for me to catch up," she said. "Any time," he replied. Over the next week, more people came, not hundreds. Not crowds, just a few souls at a time, drawn by word of mouth, by the kindness others carried with them after visiting someone. Donated art supplies. Someone else brought plants. One woman crocheted a welcome mat that read, "You made it. Now rest." And slowly, the barefoot place became something no one could fully explain, not even Ana. It wasn't a retreat. It wasn't a project. It was just a feeling, a home for the heart. One evening, a journalist sent an email requesting an interview. They wanted to talk about the viral moment. It's about Ana's transformation. Ana read the message and smiled, then deleted it. "What will you tell people when they ask about this place?" Keanu asked her. "I'll tell them it's not about me," she said. "I just took off my shoes and found the ground again." With that, they went back to planting sunflowers near the entrance. They didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but they had already done something rare. They turned pain into peace and gave it away for free. The final barefoot step of soft fog rolled in that morning. The trees around the barefoot place stood still, like quiet guardians. The grass was wet with dew, and the row of shoes beneath the porch had grown longer. Worn-out sneakers, muddy boots, delicate sandals, and even a pair of tiny children's shoes. Each one told a story. Each one whispered a goodbye to something heavy. Ana stood near the garden, holding a small wooden box. Inside it were letters, not to her, but from her, for months. She had been writing back to the people who had shared their hearts with her. Handwritten notes folded gently, sealed with nothing but gratitude. She planned to send them all. Today, not because she had to, but because she wanted to close this chapter with something true. Keanu walked up beside her, brushing dust from his jacket. He had been repairing the back fence all morning. There was always something to fix, but it was the kind of work that fed his soul, not drained it. "You okay?" he asked. Ana nodded. "Yeah, just thinking." "About what?" "About how a pair of shoes turned into a movement," she said softly. "And how that movement taught me more than all the scripts I ever read." He smiled gently. "Funny how life writes the best lines." She handed him one of the letters. "This one's for you." He raised his brows, surprised. "Me?" "Don't read it yet," she said, laughing. "I'll get too shy." "Fair enough," he said, tucking it into his coat pocket. By afternoon, a small group had gathered in the field behind the cottage. They weren't guests anymore. They were friends. Some had been coming for weeks. Others had only just found their way here. A quiet buzz floated in the air, like something was ending, but not in a sad way.
More like a gentle turning of a
page. Ana stepped forward. For the first time, she chose to speak to them all at once, not from a stage, not through a screen, just standing on the grass, barefoot, heart open. "I never meant to create this place," she began. "I was just walking. I was lost, and someone showed me kindness without asking anything in return. That moment changed." "Me?" She glanced at Keanu, who gave her the smallest nod, full of pride. "The barefoot place doesn't belong to me," she continued. "It belongs to everyone who ever felt unseen, unheard, unsure, and still chose to keep walking." A quiet wind passed through the trees as if blessing her words. "So today," she said, her voice shaking just a little, "I want to give it away." A ripple moved through the crowd. She smiled gently. "I'll still be here. But from now on, this place will be led by the ones who found their peace here. You'll keep it alive, in your way, with your hands. Your hearts." No one clapped. They didn't need to. They simply stood, still connected, present. Later that evening, after most of the visitors had gone, Anna and Keanu sat on the porch with mugs of tea and the soft sounds of the wind dancing through leaves. "You really meant it," Keanu said. "You're letting it go." "Yeah," she whispered. "Because holding on too tight would make it about me again, and it never was." He took a slow sip. "So what's next for you?" She looked out at the sky. "I don't know," she admitted. "But for once, I'm not afraid of that." Then she turned to him. "Thank you, Keanu. Not for saving me, but for staying." He didn't speak right away. Then he reached into his coat and pulled out the letter she gave him earlier. "Can I read it now?" he asked. She nodded. He unfolded the paper slowly. Handwriting was soft, like her voice. "Dear Keanu, you once gave me your shoes when I couldn't stand on my own, but what you really gave me was space, to fall, to feel, to rise again. You showed me that kindness doesn't need permission, that healing doesn't have to be loud, and that silence can hold more love than 1,000 words. Thank you, not for being famous, but for being real." Keanu folded the letter and held it close to his chest. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. That night, they walked through the barefoot place one last time together, past the porch, through the garden, along the creek where Raphael once laughed. They paused at the entrance where the sign still hung. "The barefoot place, come as you are." Anna reached up, touched the wood gently. "I came here broken," she said. "And now?" Keanu asked. She smiled. "Now I know that broken isn't the end." They stood in silence for a while as stars lit up the sky above them. No cameras, no crowds, just two souls who met in a moment of quiet pain and chose to walk forward, barefoot together into peace.